Monsters as metaphor. That's what today's topic is. It's literary, so if you're only here to hear crazy things that happened to Mr. Carly when he was young, you probably want to skip this video. I don't know, you might like this one. Anyway, monsters as metaphor. Almost all of the monsters that we look at in history, and specifically in scary stuff, are metaphors for other things. Other stuff too, now that I think about it. But scary stuff specifically is definitely metaphor. Frankenstein was a metaphor for mankind believing that it could replace God with science. So Frankenstein created a monster whose name was Adam, by the way, out of the parts of dead people and using science. And basically, because he created this thing, it went crazy and tried to kill him. It was only stupid for the very beginning part, because it was a newly awoken baby, basically. So it only talked stupid for a little while. And later on, it was actually very eloquent and well-read and well-written, and ended up murdering Dr. Frankenstein's wife. But the point of Frankenstein's monster, was to show what would happen if man tried to replace God with science. So it was all about digging in those be afraid of science fears. And that's how it worked. Vampires were, you guessed it, because almost all monsters tie into this somehow. Vampires were racist. Vampires were one Irishman slash person from the UK trying to say that all the foreigners were going to come and they were going to make your women all sexy, and then they were going to steal them and turn them into monsters. Most of you know, because I've told you before, that the Smurfs are yet another racist allegory for how the black, especially the initial Smurf story, the Black Smurf, or the Schlumpf Noir, against all the damn black people that were showing up in Europe. Complain, oh, black people are awful. According to the author of the Smurfs. I assume you guys don't think I think that. But the Smurfs, yeah, their first thing was racism. Almost all monsters are a metaphor for something. Ghosts are a metaphor for regret or vengeance. The werewolves are a metaphor for people's secrets and how you don't really know what lurks inside a person until the full moon, which the full moon is a symbol for the bright light of investigation or truth. Anyway, excuse me. But yeah, all monsters are metaphors for things. And one of the ones that I am most interested in lately is zombies. And I've talked about zombies before. And I've talked about how, well, the problem that zombies, and I realized this today, I think. I've talked about before that zombies are basically setting. They are basically an environmental hazard. Most zombie stories don't involve the zombies, like, having a personal stake. The zombies aren't even characters. The zombies are, if you knew the person before they became a zombie, then they were a reminder of your failure to save them. If you didn't know them, then they're just a sad story and a short-term danger. Almost no zombies are anything more than an environmental hazard, just like quicksand or lightning or wolves. You know, they're something that you need to be careful of, but that doesn't really have an animus towards you. It's not looking for you. It's not trying to find you. It's not trying to kill you. You're just kind of in the way, and it'll take you out if you are stupid, or if you make horrible mistakes, or just really unlucky. The same thing that would happen if you were, if you fell. They're entirely environmental. But they're a metaphor for whatever the author wants them to be. The George Romero zombies from the Night of the Living Dead and all the later Deads are metaphors usually for capitalism and consumerism. saying that, people who want to consume, they're just going to want to consume without digesting, and it's a metaphor that they take very, very literally, and that zombies consume and consume and consume, but they're never satisfied. Oops. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's generally a metaphor for communism. But then the right-hand people got zombies, and then suddenly zombies are a metaphor for all those immigrants who you can't trust, who are clearly just eating and giving birth and giving all their base instincts, and now suddenly whatever group that you're afraid of that is coming into your country and not assimilating is clearly zombies. So, if you're in Europe or recently in America, then all the people from the Middle East, clearly zombies. Or if you're, in the American South, then, those Mexicans, they're basically zombies. Like, they'll just clear you out, and they have no morals and all this ridiculous stuff. So both sides have been guilty of calling the other ones zombies. And so zombies the great thing is they can be a metaphor for anything. They can be a metaphor for people who don't plan ahead. They can be a metaphor for the soullessness. Religious groups think of them as people without religion. So all the atheists are zombies. But then the atheists think of people who follow a religion without thinking as zombies. So it becomes this really, really powerful metaphor that can tie, anybody who's your enemy is clearly an unthinking mass without a soul, therefore zombies. One of the things that's really, really useful about zombies is that as time has gone on, we've always dehumanized our enemies. I'm sure that in the time of the Crusades, they talked about how inhuman as a matter of fact, I'm certain they did. I've read stories about it. How they said that the Arabs, who had so much better education than the Christian Crusades, but no, clearly they are just savages because they do this one thing, or they eat babies, or whatever ridiculous thing was happening at the time. And so, and when I was growing up, we thought of. Before I was growing up, though, when the cowboy movies were coming out, the Indians, they're they're not human, they're savages, they cut off people's heads and they scalp them, and those Mexicans, they're savages. We always made the people that we were fighting just inhuman monsters. Then we finally had some actual inhuman monsters in the Nazis. And that's why in video games now, the only people that you're allowed to dehumanize and kill, like in mass waves, are Nazis and zombies. Recently, for a little while there, it was like, Middle Eastern people are all terrorists, and so we could dehumanize them. But we're at the point where most people hold us accountable for trying to dehumanize a whole class of people just based on a few crazy individuals. So at this point, zombies are what we need. If you need a numerous enemy that is shaped mostly like people, and you want to, specify that they will keep coming until you are dead, zombies are perfect for that. Fits their storyline, fits their metaphor. That's everything that they are. But it's one of those things where, we use zombies as a literary eventuality. They are where we end up. And knowing that they're, part of the setting makes it much easier for me to put into my thesis that they are basically an extension of what Southern Gothic is. It's very exciting. It's a pretty cool time. But anyway, zombies are a metaphor for anything that you consider to be subhuman, less than you, consuming, tied to just some base urges, anything without a soul. And so if you are super religious, then you might think that the people who are not saved, those are zombies. But if you're, an atheist, then the people who blindly follow religion without ever thinking about it. I'm making dramatic oversimplifications on both sides. Anyway, it's one of those things where zombies are a pretty good metaphor for a lot of things. and it's pretty interesting. So, what are you doing? Anyway, I hope you guys are well. I'm going to stop here because it's about 10 minutes. Beep boop.